for a minute or two. You know.
Right.
Just because.
Just because we care.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Oh, hey, hello. Hey, John. How you doing?
Oh, my goodness.
By the way, this is super, super good. It's
Oh,
almost
you like it?
dessert. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. All right. I think we've been babbling long enough. So how about an intro, Jerry?
Let's do it.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to episode number 147 of Mirrorless Minutes. I'm Jamie. That's Jerry on the other side of the mic over there.
Mr. Technical Difficulty.
So I think this is hilarious because you were telling me you were having, we'll just call them heated discussions with your IT guy at work. And then you get home and, well, you needed IT support.
Right.
That's just how it works.
I don't think he'll want to talk to me today.
Probably not. Maybe he hacked your computer and that's why you're having difficulty. Right. So, hey, if you're tuning in live to watch this, which we've got a handful of you out there doing that tonight, you may notice we are not in color tonight.
That's right.
Yeah, this isn't a throwback to the 1920s, everyone. This is actually our black and white episode. So if you're about all things not color, you're here for the right show. This is
the place to be. Right.
Definitely. Before we get started, I was telling Jerry, or starting to tell Jerry before the show, I just wanted to give Jerry a big shout out for his recommendation on this. Oh, it's funny. I forget it's in black and white, so it's not this beautiful amber color on the screen. Jerry recommended a bourbon to me from Cask and Crew, and this is their toffee walnut bourbon. And I will tell you what.
There we go.
It's like a dessert bourbon. You know, you've had a dessert wine, a port wine or something before. This would be the bourbon equivalent of that.
So it's smooth, super smooth. Right?
Oh, very smooth.
So it's a whiskey.
It's not a bourbon. I didn't even read the bottle.
No, it's a whiskey.
Okay.
So when I first, because I got a bottle of it, and when
it didn't have the full bourbon profile, but
right. So I was expecting that punch in my throat. You know what I mean? When I took my first swallow of it.
Yep.
And it never happened. I was like, what the hell? Is this watered down whiskey or what? And, I mean, it's that smooth. It don't punch you in the throat like regular whiskey does.
Right. So there's another reason that I decided to bring up the whiskey. I thought it was a bourbon. How embarrassing. Is because Jerry and I have been batting around the idea of, okay, so Adam wants to know, he's a little tardy to the party. So this is Cask and Crew. Their toffee walnut. I'm not going to run and grab
it's in the other room, ain't it? Yeah.
It's their toffee and walnut whiskey, and it is super delicious. But again, okay, so let me pull the glass up one more time. So the reason I even brought up the drink tonight is that, I'm sure it's not Scotch, buddy. The reason I brought this up is because Jerry and I have been batting around the idea of just doing something a little more kind of like fun in between shows.
Right, for
casual.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like the shows that we do right now aren't casual anyways, but maybe so they're not 100% photography during the shows. So we're thinking about doing kind of like in between episodes. And I think we're going to call them Cameras, Cocktails, and Conversation. It'll be at one of those open shows where if you're watching and you want to jump into the conversation, we'll pull you right into the chat.
As long as you got a drink in your hand.
That is the stipulation. I don't care what you're drinking. You could be like homeboy on TikTok on a skateboard drinking your Ocean Spray cranberry juice. I don't care. You just have to have something in your hand.
Yep.
And maybe we'll make a drinking game out of it too.
All right. We'll see who falls out of the chair first.
But back to tonight's episode. So I've been wanting to do this for a while. I think we've kind of touched on it once, at least in the last 6 years. But if we haven't, welcome to the black and white episode. And if we have, welcome to the new and improved black and white episode. I'm going to be sharing photos in black and white. Jerry's going to do the same thing. I want to talk about my black and white process, kind of how I go about determining if it's something that I want to shoot in black and white, post-processing, equipment, things like that. And, I'm sure Jerry will probably do a very similar thing with his, some of the thought process behind working in black and white and
Right.
we'll just kind of go from there. And of course, as always, it's open to your questions in the chat room. We encourage it. Sometimes we depend on your questions just to stay afloat. So
That's
don't be
right.
embarrassed. Don't be shy. Feel free to ask questions throughout the show. I'm just going to give shout outs here real quick. Good evening, Mr. John Thomas. It was fun shooting with you in Grand Rapids the other weekend.
Yep.
And Mike Hedge, hey, it was cool to see you made it up to Michigan, Mike. I'm glad you made it for peak color. It's not the easiest thing for those of us that live in the state. And for you to come up here from Illinois and catch peak color, good job for you. Jeff, it's good to see you again last weekend in Grand Rapids as well.
Right.
Shelly, maybe we'll be talking after the show. I hope so. Let's see. Adam, thank you. Wait, hold on. Much improved in black and white. Are you just saying I'm much more handsome? Jerry's more handsome? You just like the flavor of the black and white? I don't know what's going on here. And hey, what's going on, Steve? Glad to have you on the show tonight. So let's just dive right into this, man. I'm excited because I love black and white.
Right, for sure.
It's one of those things that I'm always telling myself, you need to do it more. You need to do it more. And I just don't, because I get in that whole frame of mind where, especially this time of year, I mean, look at it's autumn in Michigan. We're just full of fall color, and it's hard to not go out and shoot that. Hey, what's going on, Richard from Minnesota? I'd like to get back over your way and shoot with you guys over there sometime. So Adam says he bets he knows my workflow. Okay, buddy, we're going to bet drinks on that one. So, like I was saying, it's kind of hard for me to remember to get back into the black and white mode. So I think when we start getting into, for me, a lot of times, it's going to be the off-season months are where I'm kind of inspired to shoot in black and white. I love kind of a minimal feel to my shots if possible. So less cluttered, depending a lot more on like strong contrast, strong leading lines and focal points. Those are things I use in all my photography, or I try to. But I think in black and white, they really stand out a lot more. And you'll see that probably in some of the images that I'm going to share tonight. What about you, Jerry? Is there anything that when you're out shooting, it's a trigger for you that says, hey, this would be cool in black and white? Or do you go right out thinking, this is a black and white day, I'm going to find things?
No, I never. A lot of people say that, when the sky looks like crap, shoot black and white. Mm-hmm. For me, it sucks to say this, but like I would prefer to shoot black and white. Mm-hmm. But nobody nowadays respects black and white photography other than some other photographers. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like I've tried shooting it and that shit just stalls out. Nobody wants to look at black and white photos. You'll have a handful of people, but it's not like posting color. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's a little disappointing to me, man, because black and white is so moody.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And lines are sharper, I think, in black and white, and when you get, like you said, contrast and leading lines and shadows and when you get sun peeking through certain, behind a building and it's casting this shadow of the building, that stuff looks just so much better in black and white to me than color.
Totally agree.
But it's like nobody respects color nowadays. Everybody wants or black and white. They want to see color.
Right.
It's a little disappointing.
I feel like, honestly, you're talking about like the general population, right? Like,
right.
Just the average consumer of photography. And I think, I think Instagram has a lot to do with that. If you post on Instagram a black and white image, you're going to get very little traction. I know that there are black and white hubs, and the people that follow those will like it, but just the general public,
well, that's the thing too. When if you're going to shoot black and white for Instagram, you got to go balls out. You know what I mean? That has to become your thing. You have to follow other photographers that shoot black and white, or you just get lost in the shuffle. You know what I mean?
Right.
I tried doing it, and it got zero traction.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that on my Instagram account. I've done this thing where I go through, like, I'll choose a week, and then the whole week might be urbex. I'm just doing things outside of my norm. And I know I did a black and white week.
Right.
Dude, it was total. It was horrible.
Yeah, I don't get it, man.
So Jeffrey says he still uses the setup that I use for his normal RAW plus JPEG when shooting street and candids. Thanks, Jeffrey. It's still my go-to. Also, I mean, I kind of set that thing up like years and years and years ago, but it's a good standby and a good fallback, you know, and it makes, I think, finding black and white a lot easier for sure. And then again, you know, you've got that RAW, so
Right.
if it doesn't work in black and white, you got that color.
When I had Craig's Fuji, dude, I shot almost everything in black and white.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Because there was different profiles for black and white, and I was testing them out. And I was shooting, like, I love portraits in black and white.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much character to a black
Right,
and white
but-
portrait.
but-
You can't get it any other way.
I mean, you gotta be somebody to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
right.
one of my favorite photographers, Esther Van Oriel, shoots a lot of film and a lot of black and white film.
Yeah.
And that stuff is so grimy. You know what I mean? It's so cool and
Yep.
like
Hey,
no
so
respect, dude.
I'm glad you brought him up. Do you remember the name of the documentary that they did about him?
Oh, with him and Mr. Cartoons?
Yes.
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna try and find this documentary, and I'll put it in the notes for the episode. It's definitely a good watch. This guy's like was he East LA, like
for
kind
sure.
of like the whole gang world, environment, and just exploded and blew up and just became like this guy that was,
Lowriders.
he's in the lowrider scene, shooting gang members, but then he's also like shooting celebrities and rubbing shoulders with everybody in the Hollywood scene and the music scene. But like you said, his work is just incredibly cool, and so much black and white in his work, and it's just powerful to see. Okay, so it's really good question from Jeffrey. Wants to know what we think about medium format cameras for black and white. It's funny you mentioned that because Jerry was just referencing the GFX 50S that he had his hands on for a while, and I used the GFX 50R last year. And my personal preference is, so I have a shot of Jerry, and I've got a shot of another friend of ours, Rick Kefjan. And I think out of all the photos I took with that Fuji, my favorites were the black and white, especially in medium format. There's something about, obviously you've got that fall off, because it's such a huge sensor, your depth of field just becomes this crazy toy to play with. But there's just so much detail in a medium format camera. I mean, I've got, again, those shots of like Rick Kefjan is the one that really comes to my mind. He's got, at the time he had a big full beard, lots of gray and white in it, as well as, the darker colors. And it sounds weird, but I was so transfixed on his beard. It looked like so incredibly awesome. And just the character that it gives, someone's face. Medium format has a look that no one, thank you, Shelly. Yes.
LA Originals.
LA Originals.
Yeah.
Dig it up on Netflix, you guys. It is a very cool watch. I love watching anything about photographers. So, but yeah, medium format, in my opinion, I'll let Jerry speak on this, but I loved black and white on a medium format camera.
It looked really good. I shot, like I said, mostly portraits with it. A lot of stuff in the street. I walking through my neighborhood and like some of my neighbors that I know are out and shooting portraits of them and stuff like that. And then my buddy did a motorcycle shoot, so I was light boy for his photo shoot. So before he got going, I was like, yo, I got this camera. I got to steal some pictures of some of your biker friends. So so I did some of that. But man, I don't know, man. It just, like, the depth of field in it was insane. It looked almost like the background wasn't real.
Yeah, like you
It looked like it looked like I green screened them or cut them out of an image and pasted them on a different background.
But I think that there is something to specific cameras when it comes to black and white also. So a friend of mine, that I met through Mike Baining, Lou Peoples, we joked about him in previous episodes because he's the Leica shooter. And he had the Leica M monochrome. I mean, this camera was designed to just purely shoot in black and white. There are no color information hitting that sensor, whatsoever during image capture.
Right.
And there's a look to it. And that's full frame, not medium format. But I think that you get these certain cameras that I feel, again, I always say I and me because these are my opinions on it. But I feel certain cameras lend themselves to black and white much better than others.
Oh, I'm sure.
So we'll talk about your toy in a minute here, because that's again going to be one of those cameras or things that lends itself to that. I think in the Olympus world, I don't think I've used another Olympus camera that does black and white as good as what the Pen F does. And it's funny because technically same sensor, technically same processing engine inside of the camera. Maybe it's right here. Maybe it's all happening between, these 2 points and it's just in my head. But I swear I feel like the Pen F does a better black and white than, say, the EM1s do. I feel like the Leica M monochrome has a distinctive look. And I feel like the medium format cameras too. There's something to be said for that.
So, what camera are you using right now?
Like
you that's one of your Olympus cameras, right? That's your streaming
with. Pen F.
Right.
Oh, that I'm streaming with? No, I'm streaming with EM1 Mark II.
Okay, and then look at mine, and I'm streaming with my Sony. I mean, look at the difference just in the black and white.
Sure.
From the feed.
Yep. Well, I do have mine changed a bit. The settings, changed a little bit. I lowered the contrast quite a bit. Kind of smoothed me out, give me that, Hollywood Instagram glow. I changed my color filter, as well. Okay, so, I'm definitely getting a different look for sure. When we first started the show, I had my normal street photo settings in the OMD, the ones that Jeffrey and Adam are referring to. And that is, the red color filter, the contrast bumped up +2, and the sharpness bumped up +2. And it had a much, grittier urban vibe to it than what yours currently does. It was too much. I had to scale that stuff back down. Right. I looked a little too rough. So let's see if we have any other questions here. So So Adam said he was kind of interested in the black and white Sigma cameras, but way too much for what they do. Yeah, but less than a Leica that only shoots monochrome as well. It's pretty crazy, that people spend that amount of money on something that only will produce black and white. But it's kind of what we're talking about here. There's this passion behind it, and like you said, Jerry, there's not a respect from the general public for that. But the person who's going to go spend $6,000-$7,000 on a Leica monochrome camera is purely about the love of black and white photography.
Right. And that's the thing too. You need to get past what other people think. You know what I mean? You got to shoot for yourself. I mean, that's, and I hate to say it, like, there was a point in time when I was worried about getting likes.
We all have done that. Yeah.
And now I don't care no more. I do not care. You know what? I'm going to post what I want. And we talked about this on here before. I'm going to post what I want, and if you don't like it, so what? I'm posting what I like. And black and white is one of those things, and now I got my new toy, and you're going to see a lot of black and white coming from me.
Yeah. So no spoiler alerts here, but Mike picked up a X1 the X100V after the last episode. I'm not going to say any more than that. We'll talk about that in a little bit, probably, Mike. And then just quick to answer Adam's question. I don't remember which
20
OMD body it was, but it had the same sensor as another body at the time, and I don't remember if it was the
Mark 1,
the EM5 Mark 2.
No,
maybe
that's got a 16.
That's 16. So then it'd be the EM1.
It's the Mark 1.
Yeah.
The EM1.
Yep. So it did share same sensor. So that's what I was saying. Is that I don't know if it's just psychological, but I feel like there is a different look to it, and it may be because of my lens choices when shooting with the Pen F. Because if you follow the show, I preach this all the time. I'm so proud of myself for sticking to it that I decided once I got my hands on the Pen F, I would never put anything other than a prime lens on it. So, and if you shoot often and shoot with a lot of lenses, you'll know that primes definitely have a distinctive feel to them as well. So maybe it's part of that. So I think I'd kind of like to talk a little bit about my motivations to shoot black and white, like when I make that decision. I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, that for me, like lots of times it's been seasonal, but there's an exception to that season. So when I say season, I'm talking about right about now when we get to the tail end of autumn until we get into like the first, like really the edge of, spring and summer when things are starting to fill in, the leaves are starting to fill in on the trees. That's generally, I kind of back off from black and white unless it's going to be like urban shooting, or
Right.
unless I know I'm going to a destination where the criteria that I have in my head for black and white fit. And I'll talk about that in a little bit with some of the images that I share. But there is one exception to that rule, and that is my infrared converted OMD EM1 Mark 1, like the OG.
Right.
I'll take that out in the summer all the time because I want blue skies and big clouds, because there's nothing more fun than making those skies black and those super contrasty clouds just really stand out from it. It looks really dramatic.
Right.
But, so generally, though, like I said, my motivations are going to be dependent on location. So if it's outdoorsy, like not in the city, I love to chase down something minimal if possible, or something crazy full of like intricacy and texture and things like that. And some of my images will reflect that a little bit later. But then when it's in the street, it's 100% for me about light and shadow, which, I mean, it sounds redundant to say it, but it is true. Light, shadow, and shape.
Right.
So when you get in the streets, the combination of light and shadow often produces shapes. You get these hard lines from shadows falling across, different places and things like that. And that's kind of something that I look for when I'm shooting black and white. So my motivations are scene based, so again, either rural or city. And then honestly, it's emotion. I get in these head spaces where I feel like a way to disconnect from everything that's going on around me is to shoot in black and white, because there are so few distractions. Right now, like I said, it's like an eyegasm outside in my front yard. There's like 50 million colors in all the trees. And then the sky, like especially in like late afternoon, it gets really golden. So the clouds are all lit up. It's a lot to take in.
Right.
And sometimes I just want that disconnect from
Right.
all this crazy.
That minimalism.
You got it. Oh man.
Yep.
And I'm a
That's
sucker
me
for
every day.
minimalism.
Right.
Yep. And it's, it's a good exercise, a mental exercise to seek out very little, you know what I mean? To seek out,
Right.
the most minuscule thing that you can find and, create imagery with that, or the most empty scene and somehow make it, interesting or compelling. In black and white is just, for me, again, easier to work with than color for that. I need a drink. I did a lot of talking.
I don't know, man. I find shooting black and white super moody. And that's just how I like my photos to look moody. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. I mean, because you can take a color picture and change it to black and white, and it's a whole different image at that point.
Right. I don't know, dude. I like black and white. I mean, so this is what I find funny too. So, if we recall Ansel Adams, black and white famous photographer, shot landscapes. How many black and white landscape shooters do you see now?
There's a handful. That's
Right.
it.
Everything, 90% probably 95% of the black and white images I see are street or portrait.
Right. And it's funny. Okay, so you mentioned Ansel Adams, obviously, before digital.
Right.
And the two photographers that come to mind for me that I know that shoot, incredible black and white landscapes. One I know, Frank Ruggles, is shooting with a giant, like
Large
large format camera, and he's getting himself underneath, the hood and shooting. And then the other one is Clyde Butcher, and the same with him, and they're both film.
And they shoot landscape.
And they shoot landscape.
I've never heard of those guys, man.
Astounding. So, but again, I just thought it was interesting, that you point out, Ansel Adams, is an easy go-to for black and white and in his landscape. But then I start trying to think of anybody currently that I know personally or know of, and they both shoot large format film.
Well, I mean, I brought him up because he's legendary. You know
for
what
sure.
I mean?
Oh yeah, like The Godfather.
Right, right. A photography, yet nobody respects black and white photography now. Oh, phone's
Right.
ringing. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the
Yeah.
hell?
Yep. You know what? And again, I think I'm gonna blame it on Instagram because everything is crazy, super saturated, bright, full of color. Wow, Powerpuff Girls go, whatever. It's just over the top a lot.
Right,
And
right.
and I'm as guilty as everyone else with doing the same thing.
Oh,
You know.
we've all done it, man. I mean, shit.
So with that said, Instagram is a phase in photography, a current trend. I mean, granted, it's been going for years, but still, we'll loop back around. I
Right.
mean, everything kind of comes full circle, and I could see a resurgence in black and white happening at some point in the not too distant future, I'm sure.
Yep. I mean, that's the reason for my latest purchase, man. Things are changing for me. You know what I mean? The hunt is over. I
Yep.
I am shooting and keeping it simple. I'm just documenting.
So, Jeffrey brings up an interesting and deep point here, which is very poignant. Is that holidays are just overwhelmed with color and things going on in them. And sometimes black and white minimizes the scene. That helps find the story beneath what's obvious in the story. You know what I mean? And he's
For
gone
sure, for
through
sure.
rough personal loss. And I completely understand what you're saying. I mean, and sometimes for me it's similar. It's an escape from everything else, and it just helps kind of, for me, it's a grounding thing, sometimes shooting in black and white. And I agree with you. You mentioned the night photography these days. Yeah, I can totally get behind that. So I'm gonna jump into some photos. You cool with that, Jerry?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right, so I will. Let me just I'm gonna hide the sidebar on this. There we go. And I'm just gonna do a quick share. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about the image, maybe where it was shot, when it was shot, what have you, and then just talk about the motivations behind it and things like that. And so this was shot this past summer. Took the big epic trip west with my sons, and this was probably about 45 miles southwest of Moab, in the middle of nowhere. The year before, I had done a workshop out there, and we were driving to an arch that I cannot remember the name of it, Wilson's Arch, and it's outside of Moab. And on the way out there on that drive, we passed this abandoned gas station, and I had wanted to stop and shoot it, and we just never did. Never made it back to it. And when I was on the trip with my kids, I decided I was going to head back that way, and stopped at the gas station, shot it, and decided to just keep going and just see what was out in the middle of nowhere, and because we don't get that here in Michigan. We don't have any. I can't think of a single location where you could see this far,
Right.
uninterrupted,
Unless you're looking over the lake.
right, without a tree in it or something,
Right,
or
right.
or a building.
Yeah,
So
it's annoying.
so that's what I did. I was just driving on this stretch of highway and saw a dirt 2-track that just went off into nowhere. And I thought, what the hell? I'm going to do it. So I just turned and I drove about 4 miles down this dirt 2-track and came across this watering trough. I mean, there were no animals anywhere in sight, no water in the bottom of the trough, just dust and weeds and stuff that had blown in there. And, when you get out in a space like this, you have to take advantage of an object like this that's in the scene. I mean, it was really, this is like photography, composition 101. I found my leading line. So that's what I did. Set up into portrait orientation. Lots of times I like to skew my portrait orientation landscape shots so that I have an abundance of sky or, like this excessive amount of foreground. And I didn't really do that here. I just let the horizon kind of bisect the image because it was a completely cloudless sky. And I just used kind of the trough as a way to offset the fact that this was like a perfectly, centered up composition. And this was shot with the OMD EM1X, and this was just the baked in the black and white that everybody was referring to earlier that I've kind of shared out with people over the years. Except I did have a Nisi circular polarizer on, and that's how I got the sky like ridiculously black up there. And I kind of like the way it's almost like this black blob. You're kind of looking into this black hole, and I don't know. I just kind of fell in love with being out there in the middle of nowhere. My kids weren't with me; they wanted to hang back at the Airbnb, and I just had this alone time for about 2 hours where I just drove around in the middle of nowhere, praying I didn't get bit by a rattlesnake. And
There you go.
and it was a lot of fun out there. So again, this is the EM1X. I think I had the 7-14 on for this one. And you got to love the close focusing ability of the 7-14, all the Olympus lenses actually. This next shot was shot here in Michigan.
Betsy.
Yes, sir. One of my favorite places in Michigan is Point Betsy Lighthouse. It's on, again, Lake Michigan. It's kind of further north, than where I typically shoot along the lakeshore, but it has these steel breakwater. Well, they're just breakwaters. They're there to help kind of break up the waves so that it doesn't destroy the foundations of the lighthouse that's there. And I've been wanting to kind of do this minimal shot. I've done a couple minimal shots that are like longer exposure that use breakwaters in a different location there, but they've always been in color. And when I got up there for this shoot, I was up there actually driving around with Shelly in the chat room there. I've been spending a lot of time shooting with her. So we cruise around the state, and we went up there, and it was just one of those days where it's really wavy, really windy. Camera gear is going to get wet if you're within a couple of feet of the water's edge. So I knew that it wouldn't take long for a long, I'm going to say long exposure with, air quotes here, because this was really only a couple of seconds. Just the waves and the water were so turbulent that it fogged out and just smoothed out really quickly. This was, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That was, this was shot with the Sony A7 III and I believe the Tamron 17-28. And I threw a H&Y 10-stop filter on this one and just let it run. And I knew when I was shooting it that this was the shot I wanted. I wanted this black and white image. The conditions were perfect for it. The sky was overcast, and I just knew that this is what I was going to get. So I was really happy with how that turned out. Again, big focus on minimalism here. I mean, the sky is pretty much devoid of any kind of, interest. The water, really no interest, hardly any texture, anything to speak of. But then I've just got these strong, hard, rigid focal points that are immovable in the whole scene. So the next shot is just kind of walking around in downtown Grand Rapids. And this is like complete stark contrast to like what the previous two shots were. So the previous two shots, very minimal. There were objects in the first one, but aside from that, the landscape was very barren, not much going on. The same with the sky. The sky was literally nothing at all. This one, though, completely different, very cluttered, lots of reflections, lots going on. And for me, I think that the whole point of it was the white furniture that kind of occupies the space. I believe this is City Hall in downtown Grand Rapids. And just there was something about, I was in black and white mode, and this was with this was, I think, with the Fuji XE3, if I'm not mistaken, and their 27 millimeter f2.8. So this is one of the baked in Acros film simulations. And this is just pressed right up against the glass and just kind of focusing on the bright white circular table right in the foreground. And there was something about how the back of the chair that's on the back side of that table, you just see it poking up over the table, was just so white in contrast to everything else that was going on in the front of the scene. So again, I'm never going to lay claim to being some like fantastic, urban shooter or nothing like that. But there was just a lot going on in there, and it just kind of drew me in, and I knew I had to take a moment and try to pick up that scene. So the next one, it's funny because I knew I was doing this show, and I had been up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan the other weekend, 2 weekends ago, and knew I was going to be trying to gather some content for the show. And Mark Miller and I, had been traveling around all day. We got back to the room just exhausted. And I come into the room, and for whatever reason, all the lights are off except for the one that leads to where the bathroom is. And it's kind of, I felt like about this scene, Jerry, the way you did about your electrical outlet the other week. There's just something about having
eye catcher.
Yeah, it just, and I knew it immediately when I walked in the room. I thought, oh crap, where's the Fuji? I'm gonna grab this out and take this shot, just because the whole room was dark, and I've just got this one area lit up, and it just feels like you're getting a look at a moment in the weekend. And this is definitely probably more for myself, than the average person. I don't think the average person is going to look at this and be like, oh, it is art. But for me, it is a slice in time from that experience of being up in the Upper Peninsula, traveling around. The next shot, again, this was me just kind of knowing that I wanted to shoot in black and white while I was up there, and just wanting to find things that I feel make sense in black and white. I'll be honest, I prefer my color images from this location, but this building is definitely not modern. It's been there for a long time. I can just tell by the construction and by how the windows are built, the frames in the windows. It's an old home. So I just thought it made sense to just kind of, memorialize it in a black and white image. It just seemed to make more sense that way. Even though the background was full of color and all that, I didn't want that look and feel. I just wanted it to look, darker, a little depressed, and just kind of match the state of that building. And it looks like we lost Jerry. All right. And then I don't really have a whole lot more, you guys, so I'm going to try and stretch it out. So his battery probably died. So the next image, actually the next two images, are not exactly for the faint of heart, I guess, or anything like that. They're a little grim, but ones that I felt really worked well in black and white. So I said, if I'm out shooting landscape, often I'm really seeking out like a really minimalist, setting or scene for my black and white images. But there are times when I'm out shooting where I don't care. I don't have to have it be minimal. And this was one of those days. I had no intentions of shooting in black and white until I was driving down this country road just outside of town where I live. The sky was super moody, and I was really just out in full color mode. And then
what is that in the road?
That is basically the rib cage and spine from a deer.
Ooh.
And as I'm driving down the road, I'm actually, headed away from the deer, and I see this bright white. I knew what it was from like a quarter mile away, because I know coyotes drug it out into the road. And as I got close, I just hit the brakes and pulled off the road. I didn't even think about shooting a color image of this. So this is a black and white. This is shot with the OMD EM1X. And this is with the 7 to 14 millimeter. And I'm just super close up on this carcass, these bones. It's hard
Everywhere
to believe.
we go, you find dead animal bones.
Oh, dude, I am all about bones. So John Thomas asked a good question. He asked if I ever use sepia tone. I really don't. And that's just a personal preference for me. I'm not really a fan of that look. And maybe it's because of when I grew up, everybody had those photos where you'd go to the fair.
Go to the carnival?
And you'd dress up like in the old Wild West, Yeah. And it was just, there's something about that just rubs me the wrong way. I do have a couple of shots that I've played around with the sepia treatment, but it's just never been something for me. Right. And there's really not much to explain about this other than the subject matter to me was like super compelling. And
that's a cool shot.
And also you don't get a sense of scale. So this rib cage, this was a probably a decent sized deer. I'm sure, that rib cage is probably 4 foot long almost. So I mean, it's pretty good size. But again, shooting with something like, the 7 to 14, if you position yourself properly, you can kind of play around with scale quite a bit thanks to the distortion. And finally, my last one is actually one of my favorite shots from this year, totally. And it's again another grim one. But I love this shot.
What the hell is that?
It's a
mouse.
It's a dead coyote in a field. And
that's
like I said,
cool, man. What lens did you shoot that with?
So this was with the Sony A7 III and the Samyang 14 millimeter 2.8. And again, it was just one of those things where I was not in a black and white frame of mind when I was out shooting. And again, just driving back roads. And I'm one of those people, I'm telling you what, if somebody drops a quarter, 20 feet off the side of the road, I'm probably going to see it. I don't miss things. I mean, it's amazing I stay on the road, to be honest with you. But I saw the bright from the fur, like the gray and white. And I knew that, that's weird. I knew it was a coyote in the field. So, and it was out there probably about, 20 yards out. So not that far, 50, 60 feet.
Did you do any effects to that? It looks almost like it has that tilt shift.
That is not. That is actually just how this turned out with the the 14 millimeter, because I was super close. Again,
yeah, you can tell, yeah,
very close. So the distance, what you're seeing probably from the teeth on the coyote to the very bottom of the image, is really honestly probably only about like 6 or 7 inches.
Right,
super close to it. So that's kind of, I think, how the tilt shift happened. But this was one. I seen it. I knew it wasn't going to make sense in color. And then I brought it home, and this was just dropped into Nick Silver Effects, which is kind of still my go-to for black and white photos.
Yeah, they got some good stuff.
Yeah. If it's not coming straight off the camera in black and white, like it is with Fuji, then it definitely runs through Nick. I still have like the old Google version of it, when it was free, still working.
Too. Yeah.
So,
again, I got a question.
Yeah.
So are you a sharp, contrasty, black and white kind of person, or are you the matte and old school, kind of soft and?
I think it's 100% driven by what the subject is. So, I could probably pull up a few images that I've shot, that have definitely a matte look to them. I just throw it into Photoshop and put a curve on it and matte it down some. I like the matte look when people are involved more than anything else. I don't think I've ever done a matte look on a landscape, but it sets a tone and a mood with people in it.
For sure. All right, I guess it's my turn. Let's see how this goes. Are we good?
We are good.
All righty. My man Prince. Was you with me when I took this? This was in Grand Rapids on Division.
I might have been.
No, I don't think you were. That was me. I think that was Nick. So I took this in Grand Rapids. Me and Nick was walking around downtown. As we do, we park and just walk all over the place and shoot the street. And this was actually right after Prince died. I'm assuming that's probably why I was in the window. I just happened to walk past and I was like, yo, a picture of Prince. What the hell? And so I snapped this. And dude, this is one of my favorite pictures that I've ever taken. I just look. It looks like he's just looking out the window at us, like, what the hell are you guys doing out there? And I thought this turned out really cool. This was EM1 Mark II. I'm gonna say 12 to 40. So I just thought this turned out really cool. He kind of, I don't know, he kind of, like, if you look at the painting around his body, it looks like it's blending in with the background.
Mm-hmm.
But then he pops right out. Like you can see through everything but his face. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. I was like, yo, Prince is coming to hang out. But so that's my Prince shot. I took this one, I believe, the same day. This just reminded me of some, we're walking across the street and I look down and here comes 2 kids on bikes. And they're kind of dodging, cars as they go by. And, the building in the background and the pipes were smoking. And it reminded me of some old school New York stuff.
That's exactly what that vibe is with that. Yeah. It definitely looks like not anytime recent.
Right. And this was EM1 Mark II as well. I think all these are EM1 Mark II, actually. This dude right here. He did not look happy that I took his picture. He just
got a good Vivian Meyer vibe to it.
Right. Where the hell did I take? I don't remember where I took this at. I want to say this is probably Grand Rapids. He's sitting outside. And we just walked past, and I stopped, looked at him, took a picture, turned around, and kept walking. And he didn't
All
look
right.
like he was too happy. But
So this shot, okay, there's a thing about this. So his head is tilted or turned slightly to the left side of the frame.
okay,
You know, he's not looking straight at you.
Yep.
He's not looking towards the empty space on the right. I like the fact that he looks
he
not
side-eyed me. Yeah,
yeah, he looks like kind of pissed off.
right.
And I think this is going to sound really corny. I'm just kind of weird like this, but so normally, like if someone is looking to the left, I keep empty space on the left. You know what I mean? For them to look into. He's looking more towards the left. His head is tilted towards the left.
But he's looking back center.
The empty space is on the right.
Yeah.
That makes me feel uncomfortable, which is what his look does. The whole thing just has this like unsettling quality. It's
Right,
freaking
for sure.
cool. I
For
love
sure.
that.
Yeah, it looks like you can tell that he was looking straight, like he was looking to the left, and then he saw me stop, and he didn't turn his head; he just
Nope.
turned his eyes.
Yep, he just shifted his eyes.
Yep, and yeah, so I always thought that was a cool picture too.
That's a really good one.
And then I took this one in Grand Haven actually. I just thought it was funny. There's a free sign taped to the wall. I'm assuming there was probably something there and it was already gone.
Right.
But I was like, hey, look, they're giving away a free Lexus. Or what is that? Acura. Infinity?
Yep.
And then, so I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, looks like they're giving away a free car. So, just getting a little creative with it. Lake shot. This is kind of landscape, right?
Yeah.
Sorta?
Sure. It's like still life with landscape.
Right. So this was a sunset shot in Grand Haven. And sailboat coming through the channel, and I just caught the sunburst coming underneath the sail. And I mean, you know how many times I've taken this shot in my life, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do one in black and white this time. The sky wasn't really doing much. You can kind of see in the background there's not many clouds, and the sun's pretty hot. So this here, I'm gonna tell you what, this is a house across the street from me.
I like that.
Do you know how many pictures I have of this house?
It's nice that you have a subject right out the front door.
Right,
though.
right. Yeah, this is my barn. Dude, it just always, like when the sun, because, the west is to the left of the house.
Yeah.
So this house is, I'm looking north right now. So every day when the sun, depending on what the clouds give us in the sun, like there's some cool lighting in their yard. And I'm like, I'm always taking pictures of this house, man. And I just thought this day it looked really cool. So, and I think I was actually, I think we probably were talking, I'm pretty sure we were talking black and white.
Yeah.
And I think I took this with the Pen F on that one of those, no, I'm sorry. Yes, Pen F on one of those monochrome settings.
Nice.
So I don't know. I like shooting this house. I actually shot it yesterday with the Fuji. And then I took this one in New York. So I shot this from Brooklyn. This is Sony.
Okay.
No, this is not Sony. This is the M1 Mark II 40 to 150. And shot this from the Brooklyn side. And I just thought it looked cool because you can see how bright the Statue of Liberty is. Like, I didn't really do anything to this photo other than crop it.
Yeah.
But the sun's hitting the Statue of Liberty just right, and it's lighting the statue up. And you can kind of see on that building back there, like it's a little bit of light on it. But I thought it was a pretty cool shot. And I mean, first time I was in New York, so you got to shoot the Statue of Liberty, right?
Sure. My shots are from like a million miles away.
Yeah. And then, and that's it, man, for as far as my black and whites.
Super cool. All right, man. We've been rocking this for about an hour. Just want to throw it out there. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat right now, or you can always drop them over on Facebook. We'd be glad to answer those. I know we're not probably the fastest at answering questions on Facebook, just instant message us as well. Always glad to talk about this stuff, you know.
Hit me
Maybe,
up on Instagram.
yep, Jerry's.
I don't spend much time on Facebook.
There you go. So until the next episode, I guess we're probably going to tune out.
Is that it? Is that it? That's everything? We covered everything?
I think it's it, unless you want to talk about your new toy. I think we kind of gave away what it was, but if you want to save that for the next show, we can talk more in depth about it.
That way I can actually get some photos with it. Right.
There we go. So, hey, thanks you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Love all the feedback, and the commenting in the chat here is definitely something that makes the show a lot more fun to do when we get to interact with you guys. And just keep your eyes and ears open for when we're going to do the Triple C. Right. That is Cameras, Cocktails, and Conversations. Again, that's going to be a series that we start doing where we're going to invite you, and we really would like for you guys to come in and just kind of, shoot the breeze with us.
It'll be a weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yep, definitely going to be on the weekend, and you just have to have a drink with you. It doesn't have to be alcohol. Like I said, it could be cranberry juice or whatever you want it to be.
Yes, sir.
But until then, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in. And hey, one more thing. Do not forget, even if you're watching this and you saw the screen share, and if you're not watching it and listening, be sure to swing over to Facebook. Just give us about 5-10 minutes maybe to get the images put up there in a gallery for episode 147. Check out the photos bigger than they look on a screen
so I got
share.
A question about that.
Yes,
Do you think
sir?
we should upload them to we should create the gallery before the show?
I don't want to do that because I don't want people to see the pictures and then be like, nah, okay. I don't know, but I'll tell you what.
I'm talking about minutes before the show, while I'm trying to get my damn camera working.
All right, so folks, we'll do that. If you guys want us to do that, we'll do that. But Jerry's already got enough on his plate trying to get his equipment working. So when he gets that figured out, we could probably do it before the show. But until then, you guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Same time, same bat channel. You guys take care. Get out there and take some photos.
Peace.
See ya.